and welcome to another Biddle, second one of the day for Saturday, July 11th, 2020. How's everybody doing?
Doing great.
Doing awesome. Man,
Good.
you guys are like so excited to be here. I can't believe it.
Yeah.
Ready to go.
We are officially open for business. And so we're going to get right into it. There's no sense of dilly-dallying anymore. Our distro talk of the week is Ubuntu Lumina and Ubuntu Lumina Remix. I should state that completely. That's what we've been trying all week. There is a blog post that I would like to read for everybody then, but I would like to get everybody's thoughts on Ubuntu Lumina first. Dan, you want to start out?
Yeah, so I did install it on this, I call it the I Think I Can laptop. Basically, this in its previous life, it was a Chromebook. And now I've, hacked the BIOS, so I can install Linux on it. And so I installed Lumina on it because I figured it was a prime candidate. It's got an ancient Atom processor, like 2 gig of RAM. So pretty underpowered machine, and it seems very well suited for Lumina. Honestly, Lumina is crazy light. I think when I started to boot, I think I had like 250-ish meg of RAM being utilized on a cold boot. It was amazing. Running Telegram, I think it only got up to like 500 meg, 570 meg, something like that. Insanely low, and pretty functional. I'm not gonna lie, there's some rough edges here with Ubuntu Lumina Remix, but I think it's a promising base. I think it's got a ways to go, but the desktop environment itself is pretty good for this sort of thing.
Yep. Well, I had some issues like in the beginning because like I'm a noob. So I boot up onto the USB and I go in and you get to the live session. There's only one option, to try it, or it says try or try the live. I forget exactly how it was worded. Try the live session or install it, but it was only one option. So you boot into it and it goes to the live session and you're presented with password box, the user password box. So I'm like, okay, I don't know the password here. I'm going to, try different ones that usually some distros will work on, like user or password or live or, all the many combinations. And I'm like, nothing's working here. So I'm like asking people on Telegram and like nobody seemed to know. And then I asked, I ended up reaching out to Kai and he says, there is no password. I'm like, okay, well, that doesn't help me because there's no password, but I'm asked for a password, and if I would have thought like one more step, I would have just hit enter and then it would have went through, but got to the desktop and it is very lightweight. It is something that definitely will, in my opinion, need some work in order to become an official flavor. And it's not for me, but I'd like to hear everybody else's thoughts on it. Jinda, go ahead.
Yeah, I installed it on a flash drive, and I did it through VirtualBox to put on my flash drive through the USB-C port. It crashed and had an error, but it didn't seem to affect it at all. And so I rebooted the computer and lit it up and ran it, and I had, the same issues that everybody else had with it. Like if you right-click the desktop, it says, launch terminal, and I couldn't get a terminal to launch. The program has a list of choices that you could pick from, but none of them were a terminal. I had little itty bitty issues like that continuously throughout. The Bluetooth didn't work. The keyboard, the volume controls didn't work. I couldn't get Wi-Fi, the wireless system to work. I mean, sure, I could get it to work eventually if I wanted to, but it didn't work out of the box. The other thing is when I checked to see an HTOP to see what the RAM was, it was running 468 megs. For such a lightweight distro with nothing in it, KDE was running at 517, and XFC was running at 508. And Ubuntu was the most awesome one, running at 363. So, I mean, for as little as this operating system, this desktop did, to me, it was way bloated. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to pick on it. It's just, these are the things I noticed. Other than that, it seemed to run flawlessly. You know, when I did launch programs, it was quick and snappy, but like I said, it didn't have a lot of features. I had a lot of troubles trying to figure out how to set things up in it, like, you know, how to change, you know, my Bluetooth or something, because I couldn't find it. I don't know what other problems everybody else had with it, but I kind of liked the look of it, the design of it and everything. It looked nice, but like I said, a lot of things didn't work. And for somebody like, say, a newbie running it, I would not recommend it.
Yep, I think that's fair.
Okay.
Yeah, no, it doesn't have any of the applets or whatnot
Mhm.
for, you know, volume control or, you know, none of that stuff in the tray, which probably helps with the lightness, if you will. Keeps resources down if you don't have them in the tray and whatnot. But it does need some things probably to make it a little more user friendly, no doubt.
Okay. Good. I feel better now.
No, you're not alone. Thomas, go ahead.
All right, let me pull up my notes here real quick. So I will.
Wait, Thomas.
Yes.
Dan's not here to get the notepad out, but that's okay. Go ahead.
So I will say up front that it looks okay, and it's easy for me to learn to use it since it seems somewhat Windows-like. But I had so many issues with it that I could not recommend this to a new user, let alone a beginning or a somewhat intermediate Linux user. So my first issue, I went to install Lumina in a virtual machine, and it threw an error. And, you know, I think that's weird. So I just go to play around in the live system a little bit, and I go to try an update, and the update throws an error saying that the GPG key for Ubuntu Lumina, their PPA, is not on the ISO. And that really confuses me because you don't have the PPA for your own, or the GPG key for your own PPA on your ISO. It's a really easy fix, but while I was able to fix that, something like that, a new or some intermediate users may not know how to do that, and that would immediately turn them off to it.
Yep.
So I tried fixing it, got it working perfectly fine. I also had to edit out the first line of etc app sources.list using sed. And I had to use specifically sed because I tried to open it in Nano. Nano was not installed by default. And that's something that, for me, is almost a cardinal sin. Every single distro I have ever tried, save for maybe Arch, came with Nano pre-installed. Nano needs to be pre-installed for those of us who don't like Vim, who need to edit something in the command line. Speaking of Vim, Vim itself was not available. VI was, but Vim was not.
Right.
Which, for me, that doesn't really help much anyway, because I'm not really good at using either of them. I can open a file and close Vim, which is an accomplishment in itself, but I can't do much else. So I had to manually edit sources.list using sed. Once I did those two things, the update went through perfectly fine. Not a big deal. But that was editing the system that was in memory, not the squashfs file. So when I went to go try to reinstall again, expecting this to fail, it did fail because those changes had not been made to that file. So Kai needs to make those changes to his system that he's using to make that squashfs file, to make the ISO, so that those changes can be, distributed to other people.
Yeah, I know he's working on that.
Yeah, and like I said, they're pretty easy issues. Literally, adding the PPA or the GPG key is like 2 commands, maybe one liner if you want to pipe it. And nano is literally sudo apt install nano. It's not a big deal. Let's see, what else was it? I also had another minor thing, but it was really confusing the first time. The right-click menu on the desktop, when you click terminal, for me, it opened the Lumina text editor. And the window says it's Xterm. So I was really, really confused for a second, and I thought I was actually in a terminal. And when I saw it not giving me output when I tried doing sudo apt update, I was so confused. But once I realized, no, this is a text editor, not the terminal, despite having clicked on terminal, I understood what was going on and was able to find it in the applications menu instead of just going right-click terminal. I had to go right-click applications terminal. But beyond all that, it's okay. I would say fix those GPG key issues, install Nano, and make it auto login by default in the live session, and then have Calamari set that setting during the installation. Fix those 3 things, and the terminal in the right-click menu opening a text editor instead, that can be fixed later. Those are your 3 big issues.
Yep.
Those are your big deal breaker issues. Fix those, and it would be just fine.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's close. I ended up using Terminator for the terminal because I kind of like Terminator. It's not bad. That's just me. And you're right. Yeah. So there's a goof up on the desktop file probably for the text editor. I think that's fixable. And it could be just the way the packaging came down too. And maybe he didn't have any control over that. So I don't know. All right. Anyway, Thomas.
Just real quick, there are all kinds of cut sheets or cheat sheets out there for Vim. It's been around forever, and so there's all kinds of things to help you out with that. So I put a link in the chat that you can go ahead and check it out.
I saw that. Another thing I haven't taken the time to learn yet.
Also, if you use DuckDuckGo like you should and Google Vi cheat sheet, it's right there. Like you don't even have to click on a link.
Yeah, it pops it up almost like an image. Yeah, it's pretty cool. Thanks, Thomas. Appreciate all the feedback. Colin, I see you got your hand up. Go right ahead.
Have I? Testing 1 2 1 2 is my.
Yeah, you're there.
Mic okay?
Did I raise your hand by accident, or did you actually have it?
No, that was me. No,
oh, okay.
That was me. I was just joking around.
He's just messing with you, Dan.
Well, it's
the way Colin does it.
It's pretty easy. You got me.
Okay, I don't know what you all been talking about because I only just got here. But look, I tried to install Lumina, and unfortunately, I tried with BIOS Legacy and UEFI, and it would not format the disk. I had a massive error, and it was saying it wouldn't format the disk. I tried every way possible, but I've installed many distros on the laptop here, and for some reason, it just wouldn't go past that. I don't know if anyone else has had that error, or was it just me? Maybe it's a...
I didn't get that, but that doesn't mean...
Okay. It must have been a device incompatibility or something. I don't know.
That's possible, I suppose, yeah.
Yeah. I did play around with it a little bit on the live session and just played around with it a little bit there. But nothing really to report besides it seemed to work okay. It's quite different interface to what I'm used to. So Lumina, is that his desktop himself? Has he made that himself, or is it?
No, originally Lumina desktop environment came from, it was a FreeBSD project, I think.
Yes.
It was TrueOS, I believe, originally.
Right, yeah, okay.
So, and now it's been ported over to, Debian and Ubuntu.
Okay, well, it seems to work okay. I tried sort of theming and stuff, but I don't know, Lumina must have, I don't know what it runs on. But definitely GTK3 stuff doesn't work on that, so it doesn't show up
No,
in
it's
the
cute.
themings. It's cute, is it? Oh, there
Yep.
you go. I don't even know how to theme cute, to be honest. I haven't gone that depth into cute. No idea. But it seems to sort of, on the whole, sort of seems to do what you want it to do anyway. I just didn't get a chance to install it to real hardware, unfortunately. I might even try again this week on a different machine. They're all taken up at the moment. So, yeah, I wish him the best with what he wants to do anyway. He's definitely trying to become an Ubuntu flavor, with the Lumina desktop.
Yeah, I think that's the goal here.
Yep.
Yep. Okay, sure. No worries. Well, that's my take on it anyway.
All right. So I want to read this blog post, and I'm going to get to Tony then. Just yesterday, Kai put a blog post on the Ubuntu Lumina website, or the blog, and it says, over the past several months of development, we have been trying to release the 2004 edition of the Ubuntu Lumina Remix. Recently, we have had errors we can't explain, and we have spent too much time attempting to fix. Ubuntu Lumina Remix will be skipping the 2004 LTS so we can try to make it on time for the 2010 mainline release of Ubuntu. So they won't be coming back to 2004. So and I guess that echoes some of the issues that people have been having, and they're just not quite there yet ready. So just so everybody's aware, they're not actually, well, I mean, they have the image up there, but they're not going to officially release it and say, hey, here's Ubuntu Lumina, or there's going to be no extra work put into it.
Okay. That was confusing because I hadn't heard of it and I was downloading it.
Yeah.
So
Right.
it's-
I've obviously the issue's there because we downloaded it and tried it, but they're not going to be doing anything extra, I guess, is what their point is.
So then, Dan, do you think we should check out 2010 then to just kind of see what's going on? Or?
Well, it'd be nice to see where they end up. Yeah, and I'm sure that's not any more ready than 2004. So, but it would be nice to see where things land, I think, at least in a comparison.
Yep.
Okay.
All right, Tony, how are you?
I'm good, thanks, Rocco. And you?
I'm making it. Good to see you again.
Good. Not for a newbie. I struggled. I couldn't work out how to use it or where things were. I did eventually get one or two things to happen. I just found that when I put it to sleep and then woke the laptop up, I was fascinated just to stare at the screen and watch the little coloured blocks trying to move around and rearrange things. And I just hit the enter key and got rid of that. And I just thought, well, it's not for a newbie. I don't want to be unpolite about it because it may get better in time. But at the moment, to me, it's not even a usable desktop. I just couldn't live with it.
Yep.
I'd be interested to see where they go with the next release if they're not going to develop this but move to 2010 and hope to have it better for that. I'd like to take another look at it then, definitely. But at the moment, it's a non-starter as far as I'm concerned.
All right, Monica.
Hi. So I didn't get the chance to use this, but what I wanted to speak on was getting to see this grow from something mentioned, I think, in one of Wimpy's live streams to something now that we're talking about here, and just to see the community kind of come together to be interested in this and invest themselves in this and offer some really good advice on how to make this, a functional distribution here. And so it's just been really heartening to see the help offered to someone who is very new and is trying to obviously take on something very big and still has, quite a bit to go, but who it's been really kind of heartening to see the response to Kai. And so it's certainly something I hope the next time we talk about this, he and his team will be able to get through these issues and have something that is not only functional, but we can talk about as something fully featured. And so it's just been neat to watch the development of this kind of happen in various communities.
That's an excellent point.
Yeah. Thanks, Monica. That really, I think that's a great point.
Thank you.
Computer Kid, go right ahead. I know you had a good time with us this week. I watched some of your screenshots and stuff, and I know you enjoyed it too. So go ahead.
I did. It was fun to play around with. I posted a lot of screenshots in the Telegram group. I really customized it. But it definitely felt like a distro that's still in its development stages. It honestly, contrary to what some of you guys have been saying, it installed very easily, and I couldn't figure out how to do the Wi-Fi. There was no sort of applets or anything in the settings, but they did have auto install Network Manager TUI,
Yep.
which is basically a Wi-Fi app, but it's in the terminal. It's very
Yep.
easy to use. And after that, it was pretty much smooth sailing. I didn't find anything that was particularly broken. I liked it. It felt like a pet project that was like, it was tricky to use, but it was really nice to use once you got the hang of it. Just that, it's that pet project feel.
Yeah.
And then one thing I thought was cool, you mentioned the colored blocks. I loved that they had the screensavers automatically installed and automatically randomized and set to be used. It's one thing you don't see very often in distros, but I liked it. Yeah, and I definitely enjoyed using it. Kai makes a lot of things, and he takes on a lot, but he makes some really cool things.
All right. Thanks, Computer Kid.
There actually, if I could just
Sure, go ahead,
intervene
Colin.
there is actually a Wi-Fi application in there in the settings, and you
Really?
just put there is. You put your SSID in and your security, and away you go. So it worked for me anyway.
I did
So
not
on the live
see
disc.
that.
On the
Yeah,
live
it was.
disc.
I think it was in the settings. Yeah, I don't know after install because I didn't get that far. So I might have to try it in VirtualBox or something and see how I go. There definitely was a application there.
Yeah, I'm not seeing anything.
We'll have to
I'm
try
not
and
seeing
install
anything in
again.
settings.
I know I used NM2E as well, and that works pretty good. It's not too bad. It is, from the terminal, but it walks you right through it. It's not too bad.
It's like a GUI in the terminal.
It is. It's end curses. All right. Shickle, I noticed you got your hand up. Go right ahead.
So I didn't actually get a chance to try it, but I did want to comment on something that I thought was really interesting. Obviously, as it's been said before, it's not an easy undertaking to create a distribution or a flavor of any kind. So first and foremost, like, props for actually getting to the point of being able to release any image whatsoever. That's not easy. It takes time, and it takes probably a lot of headaches and restless nights. But something that I thought as well that was really interesting is that Lumina is a very unique desktop environment from a different area of tech. I think it's still Unix, and it's but I really like that this is a very unique flavor in the sense that not only is it a different desktop environment, but it's kind of opening the door to a different world of Unix and free software. So I noticed that with a lot of the desktops that tend to be flavors, you've got, like cinnamon and mate and stuff like that. They do tend to have a very traditional or perhaps more user-focused kind of approach in a way that I think many of us are probably familiar with. And I think this kind of tosses it up in the air a little bit. And I think that kind of flair might be encouraging for other people as well, that, other types of desktops, other projects, free BSD projects and whatnot, they can probably most definitely make it with Linux as well, and perhaps even become an Ubuntu flavor. So I think it's just really encouraging, and I appreciate that a lot of work has gone into it. Definitely nothing to be snuffed at, I think.
Yeah, good points.
I definitely agree with all of that.
Rocco, I think you're muted.
You are right, Dan. You are right.
I could see your lips moving, but I just didn't know what they were saying.
Such a noob. Is there anybody else that'd like to get into the conversation about Lumina? All right.
Yeah. No, I'll just say I've just fired up the live disk. It's I just wanted to say if you right click and go settings, there's an advanced network configuration under settings. I just wanted to say that's where the network thing is, where I'll connect to Wi-Fi. So that's it for me.
Joshua.
Hello. So as I too have been periodically helping Kai through her journey, just a few things I would like to point out. It's definitely great that this desktop exists. I've seen a few news articles that would like to mention good desktop environments and would like to mention Lumina, but they kind of can't because it's not exactly as widely dispersed as it always is. But it's still an alive project, and if you like cute software, LX Cute software, LX Cute as a desktop environment, then I'm sure you'll find Lumina to be a nice alternative for you. This project is also something that should have existed for a while now, and otherwise, it looks like that. I think that although these issues are kind of a hard start, she will eventually prevail, and I know that this will be a great release because there's a lot to Lumina that I can think about, and I'm really excited to see the relationships of Lumina DE and LX Cute sharing a Cute software.
Very nice. All right. Anybody else want to jump in on Lumina?
Not
Eric.
necessarily Lumina. So I hadn't heard of Lumina. I've heard of Lumina Desktop. I didn't know there was a spin. I'm just curious, and tell me if this is way too out there. There seems to be a large proliferation of remixes and spins over the last 6-9 months. We've got Cinnamon, Deepin, Lumina. There's 2 or 3 others
Unity.
that I'm not thinking of. Is there something right now in this particular release cycle, climate, community? What's going on with all of these other respins? And that's a great thing. Don't get me wrong. I'm not criticizing. I just find it kind of interesting that seemingly, and maybe it's just me, all of a sudden there's just like, boom, like here's all these different flavors.
Okay, so here's what I know about what's happening. Sorry to interrupt you, Dan.
No, go ahead, Josh.
So when I joined the Ubuntu community, when I actually got in there, I believe it was actually November or December 2018 when I just got my new laptop and I was finally able to get Linux working on there. By the time, the only remix that was actually in development was actually Ubuntu Unity, because it was more an effort of trying to maintain the desktop and no one really knew what was going on. Of course, nowadays things are different. But yeah, so then I decided of creating an Ubuntu Cinnamon remix. Of course, it was my fault for being an absolute dum-dum and not knowing what to do. Of course, later we did get, at the end of the year, we did get a release. And then here's what I know about Kai. When I was working on the Ubuntu Cinnamon website, Kai came and found the project. It's like, I'm an HTML, JavaScript, CSS guy. I'd like to help. Her name used to be Sapper. So that's what I used to refer to her as. So eventually, she ended up trying to make her own flavor. And she also wanted to make some remix in the past too. So it wasn't new to her. So she tried creating an Ubuntu Pantheon thing, which she gave up, which I don't really blame her for, because trying to get Pantheon to Ubuntu and Debian is a challenge. You'd require like a whole entire team to do that already. Then she tried Ubuntu i3, and she kind of just lost motivation to do it. And I did try helping her both times, but she didn't do it. And then she was playing around with BSD. That's why her name on Twitter is Kai BSD. And then she found the Lumina desktop, and then I think she wanted to decide, I finally have the courage to do it, and now she's here. Now, Ubuntu DDE, I actually have no idea where it started. I'm being 100% honest. All I know about Aaron and the possible backstory is that one day Aaron, the lead developer, came up to me in DMs and asked for what ISO builder we use. Apparently, he was working with Foss Freedom, the same guy who was helping me out, and then apparently poof in Ubuntu DD. So yeah, that's all I can say for what's going on. But yes, this is a pretty amazing. And for what people that I have talked to or spoke with, they're pretty happy that people are trying to come together again to make their creations.
Dan?
Yeah, so obviously Unity's been around, kind of hanging out in the wings, if you will, after it got dropped officially. And Deepin has flirted with Ubuntu for a while too, so it makes sense that those things get pulled into the fold, I guess, at some point. And I think just the timing is coincidence more than anything. But in order to be considered an official flavor, obviously you have to produce some releases, and one of the releases really should be an LTS release. So what better time than try to get it out there for an LTS?
Yeah, I definitely think there's a big push right now to have a lot of remixes, and I don't know personally what the reason is, but I don't know. I think it's pretty awesome because these are things that we don't normally have. Like, for example, the Cinnamon remix. That to me is something that should have been there for a long time. So I am super excited about what Josh was working on, and the same way with all the other ones. They might not be something that I would run, but they should be there. It's just like we just talked about Unity remix last week, and that's something that I also think should be there. So I'm pretty excited about the amount of remixes we have.
Yeah, absolutely. And it definitely wasn't disparaging. It occurred to me because I hadn't heard of the Lumina one, and just that there's coming fast and furious at this point. And it's just kind of like, what is this interest? It's great. And I'm also encouraged to see so many younger people jumping in and really, just fearlessly, as we've said, I mean, it's easy to pick things apart and say, well, in comparison to this mature distribution that's been out there for a decade that has dozens of people working on it, this one person, I find it amazing to even have the initiative and interest, and then to be able to carry out it's impressive, and congratulations to everyone who's been doing this.
Yep.
Celebration of the desktop.
Computer Kid.
One quick thing that I wanted to share is that Ubuntu Lumina came with a great screenshot application, and I turned on the BSOD screensavers, and it terrifies me every so often. Just does that. It's terrifying. Keep thinking it's broken.
All right. Anybody? Vince, go ahead.
Yeah, just on the many remixes coming out, I had some thinking about it early in the week, and it's easy to be dismissive. Oh, it's another remix. It's something else coming out. We've got so many remixes, but if somebody is, and often it's just one or two people are going to the trouble of making it, then surely there is huge value in it for at least the people who are going to be making it and then using it. So I thought it's a great thing as well too that there are so many remixes coming out as well.
Anybody else want to jump in on the Lumina or the remix?
All I'm going to add is, despite my griping and my bashing, it overall is a decent distro. It needs some work, but if I'm not mistaken, this is Kai's first time ever releasing a distro, ever trying to do something like this. So, to be honest, stuff like this is to be expected, especially for a person's first time. And it's never pretty your first time, no matter what you do. And I'm sure give it a couple releases at least, and it will be usable. Give it a couple years, and it will be fantastic. So keep up the good work, Kai. Don't give up. And I can't wait to see what you do with it after you fix the bugs.
Yeah. Perfect.
All right, that's going to be our take on Ubuntu Lumina Remix 2004. I definitely thank Kai for your efforts and all of the work you put in. There's a lot of work that goes into releasing a distro, and it's a tall order. And as Eric said, you know, he mentioned about having the initiative. There's no way I want to do that, but I appreciate everybody who does it. So thank you very much. All right, we're going to move on to the next topic, but John, welcome to Biddle. How are you, sir?
Pretty good, Rocco. How about you?
I am making it. So I'm glad you joined us. So you've been running Linux for a long time, John?
Yeah, about 12 years now.
Nice. And what do you run?
Right now I'm running Ubuntu Mate 2004.
Perfect. Very good. Very good. It's not a shock, but it's very good.
No, not a shock, I'm sure.
Yep. All right. Well, you're welcome to jump in at any time, John. Anytime you feel the need.
Thank you, sir.
All right. So there is an article on OMG Ubuntu, and it's not a new article, I don't think. It was updated in July, like just this month, but I don't think it's a new article. And it is 21 best Ubuntu Linux apps. And I just thought it would be cool or fun to go through and see what they are and kind of get your vibes on it and maybe what you use instead of that. So we'll just run down the list and we'll see what you guys think. First on the list is Geary email client. So I know that Thunderbird is like the most popular email client, and to be honest with you, I don't run an email client anymore. I used to run Thunderbird, but got to the point where I'm just a web browser mail kind of guy now. But there's a lot of people that like Geary, and there's a couple other solutions like Evolution and Kmail. But what do you guys think about the whole email app ecosystem? Which one is your favorite?
Kmail.
Really, Nate?
I use it every day.
But it doesn't work with Gmail.
Yeah, it does. I use a Gmail every day.
I think you're the only guy that uses Kmail, Nate.
You know what?
No, I'm just teasing.
I appreciate the team of people that keep it running just for me. You are all beautiful people. Thank you so much.
All right.
I use Thunderbird, Rocco, but I do like the look of Geary, but I cannot add new folders and stuff from my within my email account on Geary. It's a really nice looking interface, but it just has restrictions to what I do.
Right.
So Thunderbird's my go-to.
I use Thunderbird as well. I used to use Evolution because it had the ability to like pull down my Google Calendar stuff and integrate it into Gnome Calendar, which is the calendar app I used to use. But ever since I stopped using the calendar interface on desktop, I've just switched to Thunderbird. I really wish they would make Thunderbird for mobile, because then I could connect to my Drugger OS email on mobile, because I don't want to use my Drugger OS email in Gmail because it has so many issues with it, but it barely works.
Well,
so
I mean, like Thunderbird, it works so well. I mean, you can't fault it in most cases for anything, because every single thing that's in Thunderbird works perfectly. The only thing that I always say about Thunderbird is it just looks like it's dated, and they really need to give it a refresh of the whole look of things. And, you know, they've talked about doing it, but nothing has come out as of yet. And that's kind of a hard thing. That's a big big thing to ask to kind of like revamp it to make it look modern and still have it work as good as it does, because I'm sure that's why it's used as much as it is, just because it works so well. Chicken, go ahead.
So I'm really weird, and I like the shiny, pretty stuff. And I'm one of those people where if like the interface that I'm using doesn't also appeal to me visually, I can't work at all. Like if it just doesn't look good and feel good, I'll just not do it. And I know that's probably a little nitpicky, maybe sometimes perfectionist, but this is why I tend to lean towards things like MailSpring or Geary. I run into issues with Geary because it can be a little temperamental, and sometimes it just crashes and eats itself, and then everybody catches fire and screams, and nothing's good in the world. But on the other hand, it has things that I consider critical, like being able to run in the background and auto start, and kind of not actually like require me to constantly open it to get notifications. Whereas with like Evolution, as much as I love it integrating into my calendar, it doesn't run like on auto start in the background. So I have to like manually go out of my way of whatever it is I'm on the computer to do to open my email client and have it running in the background instead of it just doing it. And so I think this is why I've started leaning towards things like MailSpring, is because even though it's an Electron app and it's a little heavier than a lot of the quote unquote native clients, it tends to do all right with accounts integration and having a large set of features without being super unstable.
All right. Tony, go ahead.
I'm like you, Rocco. I no longer use a mail client. I haven't done for years. I just use the browser, find it easier. And if you distro hop a lot, which I still do, there's no setting up. It's one app less to install, and it just makes it easier.
Yeah, I would always end up either symlinking to my Thunderbird profile on another drive, or just copying the whole Thunderbird folder over, which is, I think at the last time I checked, I think it was like 10 gigabytes worth of stuff in my Thunderbird folder, because it's just grown over the years. So that was like, that's to me exactly my point, Tony. It wasn't worth it to me to do that every single time I reinstalled something. So I just said, yeah, I'm just going to use the web client.
Yeah, makes perfect sense.
Yeah, that's all I use too, is just the web client. I just use, gmail.com.
All right, Vince.
I've got a confession to make. I use Opera Mail. Now, Opera Mail is a client that actually hasn't been actively developed for, I don't know, best part of 10 years. And there used to be a Linux version, but I've never been able to find it since I hopped back on the Linux. So I actually dual boot into Windows and Mac as well, because I've still got the Mac client, and I will check my email. Well, I do a backup once a month on Windows, but on Linux, I use the web client because I haven't really found a good way to import my 10,000 plus emails across over to another Linux client. I've looked into Evolution, I've looked into Thunderbird, but to do so from Opera, I'd have to individually export all the folders that I have and then import them back into Thunderbird. So I don't know, I'm kind of stuck in this weird purgatory of email.
Wow.
Yep.
I guess so. That sounds complex.
That is terrifying.
John, go right ahead. You got your hand up.
Sure, thanks. So I'm kind of with Tony on this one. I use a browser for my email most days, and then if I do use an email client, it's very targeted. I'll use NeoMut over a SSH session if I have to really do something specific. Other than that, yeah, not much I can't find in a browser.
Yeah,
Yep.
I'm in the same boat, really. For the most part, I use the browser. I even use the browser for my work email. I don't know. But yeah, I'll use Thunderbird on occasion for a couple of things that I have, and I will say Thunderbird, along with Enigmail, makes it super easy to sign and do encryption and stuff like that. So I find that helpful, but Beyond that, I usually just use the web browser.
Yeah, I'm the same way. Without a corporate job and without needing like Exchange and all that stuff, I just use, even for non-Gmail kind of stuff, I just use most hosted webmail gives you a nice, or a hosted email gives you a nice web client.
Yep.
Yeah, for work I have to use Outlook, unfortunately, because it's on Exchange, but home, web-based.
Yeah, but they even have Outlook for the web now too. So I think a lot of places are switching over to that.
Yeah, we're slowly doing it. We're starting to do the Office 365. Do the, was it OHA or something? I forget
Yeah,
what it is.
OWA.
OWA, yeah, whatever it
Yep.
is, to access it. But for right now, we're just still using the actual Outlook client.
Gary Bean said, "You've got mail," referencing AOL. I spent
You've got mail.
I spent 3 or 4 hours cleaning up my my aunt's computer last weekend, and it was just an absolute train wreck. But she still uses AOL, and I kid you not, when you log into AOL, they still play that.
Wow.
I was like, "You've got to be kidding me!" And it's still that poorly sampled. They haven't even upsampled it. It still sounds like
Right.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I like the German version of that better. It was still poorly sampled. To go, "Du hast Briefen," and I thought it was just fun.
Was that GOL?
I don't know. You could choose different languages though.
DJ, go
That
ahead.
was the pinnacle.
DJ.
Encryption features of it and the fact that it's open source.
DJ, I'm sorry, dude, but we missed the first part of that, I believe. At least I did.
I said I use Tutanota.
Oh.
I use
Tutanota. Okay.
Yes.
Yep, I definitely have a Tutanota account. I don't use it as much as I should, I guess, but yeah.
That kind of reminds me of something. I suppose the type of email service you use as well is also an important thing, because I can't use my Proton Mail account with most clients, at least not in a way that I would consider ideal, because I'm very picky about how things tie into stuff. And if I have to set up like a bridge of some sort for stuff like that to work, then I'm just going to quit life. So I find myself using web clients and normal clients depending on the service. So I don't know how many types of email there are that might require a special client, but I'm sure there's more than a few.
Yeah.
Yep.
You can Tutanota, you can use the web too. You can use it on your iPhone or you can use it on your Android. It has apps for all of it. So I really like it. I like it.
Well, part of I have the same scenario, Chicken, because at the time when I made the switch basically from Thunderbird to webmail, it was right around that whole Proton Mail bridge being in beta and everything when it came out. And it just was always a turnoff to me because it kept updating. I know it was in beta and I probably shouldn't have been using it, but just having to update that all the time manually. And I believe they went to an automated update now, if I'm not mistaken. But
yeah,
that was
so
that whole.
Yeah, I have the released version, and it just seems to work now. It updates a lot less than it used to, for sure, and just kind of runs in the background automatically. You don't even know it's there anymore. I don't mind it. I do use Proton Mail with Thunderbird together, so it can work.
Well, that was the time frame basically when I decided to go to
Yep.
webmail. But the guys in the YouTube chat said that Thunderbird, I guess, has a beta out, or they are supposed to be releasing a UI refresh this year.
Yes.
I'm hoping they do. They've talked about it for quite a few years. Just never got any traction, so I'm hoping that happens because that would be awesome. All right, moving on down the list here, we have a Lollipop music player. Now, I guess the music players are difficult sometimes because a lot of us will use something like Spotify where we will stream it versus other people who have actual tracks on their PC where they're going to, play the music locally. So this may be a not this may not be the greatest thing to bring up of which is your best music player, but what is your guys' music player of choice?
So, I had a little bit of a journey with this. When I started Linux, I used something called Banshee. And I love that thing so much because at the time I had an iPod and it was like an iPod Nano 4th gen. So it was like the iconic one that you really think of when you think of the iPod Nano. And iTunes does not work on Linux. You can actually use it in Wine, but when you try to connect an iPod over USB, it can't work with it. So I tried to find a way to actually work with it and discovered Banshee can actually take tracks from my computer and put them on my iPod. So that's great and all. But then I never got an update to Banshee. And I did some research and discovered that Banshee was discontinued. So I went to Clementine. And I loved Clementine. And then I realized it's Qt. I'm on a GTK desktop. Kind of bloated for my system. So at this point, I am using Audacious because I have a burning hatred for Rhythmbox. And that is one of the first things I always uninstall when I install Ubuntu is purge Rhythmbox, give me Audacious. Because that's just a personal choice. I really don't like Rhythmbox. I prefer Audacious. I don't use it very often anymore. I tend to use Spotify more often these days because I can just download it since I have Spotify Premium. And all's well and good, and it's easier for me to find and download music like that. But I try to keep like a separate backup of music just in case I need it, and Audacious is where it's at on my desktop.
I've been using Lollipop quite a bit. I don't know. I mean, they're all good and they're all have missing features in some ways. I mean, I was an Amarok user back in the day, which, as you'd expect from KDE, had everything.
Everything.
And,
it did.
And it's still out there, but it's, you know, it really hasn't been maintained well. I know that there's some people working on it. It's not to disparage it. It's just, you know, there are more modern options. And I don't know, Lollipop looks good. It fits in well with the, you know, desktop. And, but I, you know, I kind of switch around. There's, I do a lot of streaming audio. And so there's Shortwave, which is a streaming player. And if you have Google Play Music, then there's the Google Play Desktop player. And, you know, I think streaming for me, so I have a hard drive full of music that I almost never listen to. And it's just because it's just as easy for me to just fire up some other player and listen to the same thing. I have boxes of CDs that I haven't ripped to MP3. And so I have lots of LPs. I have all kinds of music format, cassette tapes. You know, I think streaming has made it so easy and accessible. And again, back to almost like the email question, right? Do you have a music player client, or are you just streaming it through a web client? And I think that's a lot of this has just gone that way, that you just stream and it's just easy. And depending on the service you have access to basically all of the music ever made in a lot of cases.
Pretty much.
My dad was here a year or two ago, and Google YouTube Music had just started, and he had asked about some very sort of not unpopular, but it was a band from like the 70s that, you know, you would think there's no way that this is on here. And sure enough, you know, it's the whole catalog is on there. And he was just blown away by that. So for the next few months after he went home and was using it, he's like, I can't believe all this music is on here and it's free. That's, you know, that's how that works. So,
well, there's a couple things you mentioned there. One, I really got into Google Music Play, that thing. And they have a desktop player that you can install Linux on it that some guy has made. And I really enjoyed that whole setup. But I guess they're getting rid of it. So just a week ago, I got a message from YouTube saying, hey, do you want to transfer all of your playlists and liked songs and everything over to YouTube Music. So I ended up doing that. I don't use YouTube Music, but I did it just to have it so that I didn't lose all of them hours of listening to things and liking songs. But that's like a huge commitment in any of those types of streaming services, whether it be Spotify or whatever it may be, Apple Music, God forbid, where you spend, and there's nothing that brings all of your stuff over in one neat form. So you spend a ton of time trying to set up the songs that you like, the playlists that you like, and everything else. So
that's the danger of all of these services, really, and not beyond just music. My wife and I had been using something, I don't even remember what it was, years ago for streaming music. And it was great because you could find all this music. And this was before Spotify and before Google Play and all this stuff. And it was great for about 2 years. We built all our playlists, we shared everything, and we would sit in the office and work together and listen to music. And then they just decided, we're not going to do this anymore. And so we had all of these playlists in their system that we couldn't export. And it just, I feel like, and if Google's going to yank Play, and I mean, I don't see Spotify going anywhere or some of these other services, but there's always a danger of not being able to continue to have access to it. So there is something to be said for your own catalog, your own player. But I mean, honestly, are people buying music anymore? Downloading it? I mean, I will, if it's an artist I really want to support, then I will buy the digital version of their album just to show support. And I mean, I know I could go get it somewhere else, but I figure at least then, I'm supporting the groups I like. But at the end of the day, I mean, I don't think anybody's buying permanent copies of media anymore.
Well, you got Nate, who buys everything, like physical copies. He's the physical copy guy. Just saying.
Yeah. But it's a great way to go, right? I mean, Nate, you can get the Blu-ray discs and have high quality videos, and you can find them for almost nothing. You burn them or I'm sorry, rip them, and got a great media collection, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
It's work. It's a lot of work. That's why I said it's just easier to just go somewhere and watch it or listen to it.
Yep. Okay, Jason Starbuck.
Well, I definitely agree with the whole, ripping the Blu-rays and all that good stuff. That's what we do. We buy all the movies and stuff like that. But instead of keeping them on a shelf and selecting a movie, we throw them on a Plex server so that we can, just watch them from anywhere, on our cell phones when we're out at the dentist office or whatever. But as far as music player goes, I just use Pandora Radio. For my mobile devices to download the app. For desktop, for Windows, I use a desktop app that they have. I don't believe there is one for Linux yet. At least I couldn't find one, so I just used a web-based one for Linux. And I'm a premium member, so I've got a bajillion different playlists of various different songs.
Well, that's the thing, right? You get access to these services. So Play Music and Spotify both have free plans. And then if you're an Amazon Prime customer, you've got Prime Music, and they have a paid tier, but you're getting access to that. So I have so many different options when it comes to that. So
yeah, that's true. I mean, I think the only one that doesn't really have a free thing to it is Apple Music, because I know they have the trial. You can do like a 1-week trial, but then it's like $15 a month or whatever it is. To use it. I forget what it is. It might be like $5 a month for students, $10 a month for single users, and $15 for families, something like that.
It's a lot. And when you already have a bunch of streaming services, like I know Disney was a huge thing. Everybody wanted to get on there for some of their programming, but you've got Netflix, and then you've got all these other services, and all of a sudden you're spending more than you did for, cable and everything else. So, yeah. So Big Pod, you've had your hand up for a while. If you're there. Are you there? Nope. Tony? Oh, wait.
You hear me? Yeah, I had a cable unplugged.
Oh, sorry.
Well, I use Cantata. It's desktop app I use with my MPD server. I have a music player daemon server, so most of my music is there. What isn't, I mostly play through browser. Either if I find some music on YouTube, or my favorite local radio station has a on the internet version of their program, so I listen to that sometimes.
Yeah, it's like iHeartRadio in the US, who owns pretty much all of the radio stations, as far as I know at this point. There aren't many left. But yeah, iHeart lets you listen to any radio stations, and their podcasting's another big one, right? That's the new fertile battleground for these streaming services. You've got exclusive only deals with like Joe Rogan on Spotify and other platforms like that, and iHeart. So yeah, this is a big area of growth, obviously. So
Most of these streaming services aren't actually available here in my country, so
yeah,
I can use what I get.
Yeah, that's true. All right, Tony, did your hand up?
Yeah, I've played around with Lollipop, used it quite a bit, and I think it's a real slick, modern-looking player. But I just gravitate towards Audacious more because I find it easier to set up, easier to do a playlist, and it just works. And it tends to do what I want it to do, whereas sometimes with Lollipop, I've got to mess about with it. But it is a good player, and it's one I probably will go back and have another look at now it's been mentioned. I use Spotify, but the only problem I find with Spotify, it works okay, but it doesn't always work okay with some versions of Linux. Sometimes it'll throw a weird thing up in the dock. So if I use that, I tend to set it up in a separate browser and use the online version that way so that I don't have to go through the issue. But other than that, I'm old school, I'm afraid, so I tend to listen to music on CD or whatever it is, or rip that into the computer and listen to it through either Lollipop or something like Audacious.
Very good. Computer Kid, tell me that you spin vinyl.
I don't spin vinyl. I basically do Spotify Premium in the web browser, and then if there's like an MP3 on my computer I want to play, I just pop up in VLC. So I'm pretty boring.
You are. Weird.
Well, I'm pretty boring too because I use VLC as well, and sometimes I'll even go older school and go
VLC, dude. Come on.
I don't use it all the time, but
do you use the visualizations though? I mean,
right?
No, because I go worse.
Yes.
I use the N-Curses version of VLC.
Oh my gosh.
I don't. I use Spotify in the browser most of the time to listen to my music, but if I got to play something local, I'm using VLC just because it works with everything. You can throw a lot at it. Anyway,
You're like me, Dan.
see, there you go. There's like-minded people out there. Shickle, I see you've got your hand up. I know you use something a little more elegant than that.
Lol. Actually, I think I'm sort of similar to Computer Kid in this regard, in that I do pretty much everything through Spotify. I will say, if you guys want to have a really terrible time with local files, Spotify does let you play local files through it, and it is the worst experience you could possibly have. So that's always there if you wanted to, be
Agreed.
a masochist.
Well, see, you knocked my N-Curses VLC down, and there you go. You can struggle with your Spotify. DJ, you've got your hand up. Go ahead.
So I use a couple of them. I was using Spotify for a while for streaming, and they dropped some support recently. I do some DJing, and they've dropped support for DJ Player. So DJ Pro went over to Tidal, and I've been playing with that. Tidal is about the same. It's TIDAL. It's about the same cost, except it has better interfaces to external devices and streaming, and the music quality is so much better than Spotify. It's probably twice as good just on the standard. They also have a hi-fi mode, and then you can do families, I think up to 6 people as well if you want. And then for doing media playlists, I use Sayonara. It's a very lightweight system. It integrates with SoundCloud and Soma and also Last.fm. So it's pretty nice if you're listening to podcasts that go through Soundcast, because you can leave a bookmark where you left off. So you can come back and pick up where you left off. So if you're doing audiobooks or something like that, it works good for that.
Well, you mentioned Tidal, and I have to say that Tidal is awesome in some respects. I love the quality that they offer because, again, Spotify is not the best quality audio. I think it's less than normal, I would say. Like, for a streaming service, they pretty much pack it down there. Go ahead.
I will say that one thing that is necessary with Spotify, and it's really annoying that they do this, is that obviously you have to set the audio quality to the highest it can get to even come close to being acceptable. But you also need to, there's like a thing that lets you adjust the dynamics of it. You have to drop that down to quiet, because by default it's in this like mid-range level where it tries to just make it louder, and by doing that it degrades the quality of it a little bit. So you have to drop that down as well. And
Well,
then,
that may be an issue because I don't think I played with the quality settings, and I don't think I played with that.
yeah, it's
But
unfortunate.
no question that Tidal has a beat as far as when you're listening on the hi-fi. If you've paid the subscription for hi-fi, awesome sound quality. The only downfall to that is, like, if you're listening on your phone, I do run into issues at the end of near the end of the month where I get a message from AT&T saying, "Hey, you're near your limit of unlimited data, which is not unlimited, and we're going to put you on the slow plan here if you don't stop downloading stuff." So, and that all comes from Tidal, because that's pretty much what I do. So yeah, that is a downside to it. But when I had my music on like hardware, like I don't even believe I have all of my music on this machine. I have it somewhere on a hard drive, but when I had it on there, I have a pretty big library, I would say. I think it was like 100 gigabytes of stuff, and that was low quality too. So, but there was a music player that I used to use, Quode Lebet, and that was an awesome music player for big libraries. Like, there are some music players that struggle with a big library and thousands of songs. So that one was one that I really enjoyed using when I did listen to it locally.
I'm curious, at what point do you guys notice? Because I'll admit that my hearing probably isn't as acute as maybe other people, but it seems like when you start getting that 300 range, I don't personally hear much difference between like 192 and the 300 plus range. But
well, I think that with just in respect to that, before Tidal, I was listening to Spotify, and it didn't seem that bad. I didn't really notice the quality issue until it was pointed out. And then when I switched over to Tidal and heard the quality difference and compared the two side by side, then it was like, oh my gosh, this is terrible. And now you can't unhear it. Like, now I hear it all the time with Spotify. So it's like, yeah, it's rough.
Makes sense.
Yeah. There's a huge.
Never use a Tidal.
There's a huge difference, especially if you get into the 320 kilobits a second is not that great for audio. I mean, if you're just listening on a computer, yeah, that's fine. You could probably get down to 128 and not notice it with the quality of speakers that computers have. But if you're listening on hi-fi gear, 48 kilohertz and 96 kilohertz, that's where you want to be, because you will notice a difference in a home set.
Well, the other downside to Tidal, DJ, is that not every song in their library is available in hi-fi.
Well, it's true, but then, but most masters don't have 96 kilohertz either. Most
Right.
of them are 48.
Well, the reason I bring it up is because when you go through your playlist, you're playing a song and it's on hi-fi, and it's loud and it's really sounds awesome, and then you go to the next song and it's so much lower and less quality that it's like it, and then it goes back up really loud when it gets to a hi-fi song. So, yeah, Shikko, go ahead.
I was gonna say that for me, I don't necessarily know at what point in like the data range that it starts making a difference for me. But I do know that when I tend to listen to things that are on the higher quality side, the biggest difference for me is that I can hear a lot of the separation between the instruments and everything going on in the background with much greater detail. Like I can pick out a triangle somewhere in the orchestra much better than I can when it's at a lower quality or playing on lower quality hardware even. And I don't know if that has to do with just it having more room to actually play or what that necessarily is, but I do know that I can focus a lot more on very chaotic noise. It just comes out a lot clearer to me.
Nate?
I recently did a series of media player hopping. I wanted to find like an all solution for everything that I did. So podcasts, local music, and everything else. And I ended up on Amarok for music. It handles my 41.23 gigabytes of music just fine. But I find that I don't even really listen to it because I'm mostly listening to podcasts like, everything from Destination Linux to Linux Spotlight and whatnot. So, yeah, I don't know why I even keep my music on my drive so much anymore. It's probably like maybe a couple dozen songs that I'll listen to from time to time. But then I'll use a CPod for my podcast player because I can make it go faster. So I use the slightly older app image. But and then I listen to radio, like streaming radio, mostly. I find not like the Pandora or Spotify. I've never even seen Spotify. I didn't know what it looks like. But the just like actual radio stations, terrestrial radio stations that also stream. So there's some local ones that I like to listen to. That's
Nate,
really how I consume my media.
you'll like Spotify. It's green.
Yeah. Well, that does sound good, but I hear there's like a monetary exchange involved.
There
with
is.
that.
There is.
Only for premium.
Yeah.
There is a free thing, but then you have to stream it and you don't get as good quality. It's a whole thing.
Ads.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had a
just keep
Yep,
podcasts.
sorry. Yeah, so I had a very big journey about this. By the way, hi guys. It's been a long time.
JJ? Dr. Random?
Hey, so basically I started a few months ago on a Tidal trial for 4 months for $4. And that was like a trial that came on a few months ago. And this sort of gave me down into a rabbit hole of trying to experiment with audio gear. I actually got a AudioQuest Dragonfly Black, which I only got working last week through Jack. If you want details on that, I posted it somewhere on the Ask Noah channel, somewhere on Telegram. But short of it is that Jack is awesome when it comes to using high quality DACs, and I can manipulate it to higher bitrate streaming, and also you also need a good pair of headphones along with that to get some interesting get some good quality. My closeback set, or my entry level closeback set, is the Monoprice 8323. And I also have an open back set of Grados that I got on eBay. That is pretty good. In terms of being my first open back set of headphones, they're more open, and plus Grado is made in the USA, so that's another perk right there. But Jack, when it comes to DACs, is pretty cool.
John, you had your hand up. Did you want to say something?
If you'll indulge me, I'll go back a little bit in the conversation to Schickel's point. When I was much younger and I could differentiate the bits of audio in the sound quality did matter a lot more to me. As I got older and hearing faded as it does, then yeah, the audio quality stopped meaning just as much.
Yeah, and I think that's my case too. As I get older, I can't hear the difference as much. So, I had a question, and I know we've talked about this for a while now, but one of the things we mentioned Spotify and or not Spotify, Pandora.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things I've always loved about Pandora and other services like that, and the one that I referenced earlier that my wife and I listened to, one of the strengths of those was discovering new music. And I have just a problem in general now. There is so much music out there that it's just like trying to watch everything on YouTube. It's kind of impossible. There's just so much. So how do you find, new music that fits sort of what you like in music? And so it seems like some services, like I'll use the radio function, stuff like that. And some services seem to do a reasonable job, but man, a lot of them just they aren't even close. And that's where
Don't get me started on YouTube Music.
well, but I think that's where Pandora in particular, that's one of their strengths, is that they put a lot of effort into that curation of, what does this music, what does it really consist of, and trying to match things together. And so in terms of discoverability, I mean, I have such a hard time, and it's really, I find myself listening to the same things over and over, and I kind of get disappointed because it's like, I know there's got to be this great music out there that I'm not seeing.
And Tidal does have a discovery feature. They have a very extensive, like they're meant for music lovers if you want to explore music. Like they actually have a dedicated explore page dedicating to, and also on the homepage they do have like new artists as well as like topics, like as related topics of the day as well on Tidal.
Well,
also, yeah.
Go ahead, JJ. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and also on your point on Pandora was recently acquired by Sirius, if I remember correctly, way back a few months ago. So I think their discoverability is what attracted Sirius to acquire them. So,
well, if you look at Tidal or any of them, really, Spotify has an Explorer area where you can go and I don't think any of them hit the nail on the head. Like I don't regularly go into the Explore section and find music that I want to hear. It's very rare, but they all do have a section for it. It's just, the application of it is not the greatest.
Yeah, my favorite thing about the Pandora radio is that, you have the, like they were saying, Explore section, but I don't actually use that. What I do is I take an artist I do like and I go make a channel. I go look up that artist and hit that channel. When that channel plays, it automatically plays, people that are, artists that are like that artist. And you go through and you can, give it a thumbs up or whatever if you want to hear more from a particular artist, and thumbs down if you didn't like a particular artist, et cetera, et cetera. So I sit there and I just throw that on there in the background half the time. I mean, it's on right now in the background, and just let it play. And it
But I do that too with a lot of services. And even though I'm interacting with it and I feel like I'm taking the time, okay, I'm going to thumbs down this. And you're right. It seems as though they go as deep as what is the genre of this artist, and then try to just kind of throw in other things that might be related. My experience with Pandora in the past was that they did a much better job of qualifying not just the artist, but the song, the tempo, the composition, the instruments. Like it just seemed like they had a much more intelligent system for finding those things. And I guess that's what disappoints me so much about the other services, is they do seem so shallow. It's like, oh, well, you like that band, well then, no, this one does kind of the same thing.
So Spotify, I have found their little explore section at the bottom of a playlist that you make, it gets better the more music you have in a playlist up to a point. So like I have several playlists that have about 20 to 30-ish songs, and it often suggests songs that I would normally want in there, but I'm happy with the playlist as it is, so I don't add anything. But in my favorites playlist, which is like 60, 70, 80 songs, I don't even remember exactly how many it is now, it's constantly suggesting songs that I forgot that I wanted to put in there.
So then maybe over time it does get a little more refined. Okay.
Yeah, it's not as refined as like Pandora, where you could like thumbs up a song or thumbs down it. And I think it's not as refined as iHeartRadio, where if I'm not mistaken with iHeartRadio, you can like set how much you like a song. And if you hit the heart button, I think it even like makes another favorites playlist of all your hearts. It's not that refined, but Spotify differs from those two in that iHeartRadio and Pandora are geared more towards being like radio. As you listen to a type of radio playlist, it'll have songs in there that you intentionally added, but it will also suggest things as you listen. Whereas Spotify, in order to get to that sort of functionality, you would have to have it on shuffle and not cyclic. So like as soon as it shuffles through everything, then it continues playing on its through your suggested, because that's what it will do by default. And even then, like I said, it's not quite as good. It's meant to be more of like a normal playlist that has a little bit of a suggestion vibe to it, if that makes any sense.
I'm a little more easygoing with how I pick up new music. Mostly I'll just be playing something on Spotify and then I'll run out of playlist. It'll start playing something else from the algorithm. And I'll either say, hey, that's a pretty good tune, or I'll move along. I do have to agree with you, Eric, that Pandora really went in a different direction with how it suggests new music. I don't know if it still is, but it used to be based on something called the Music Genome Project. And I'm pretty sure just incremental adjustments have just totally trashed that. And I'm sure in 10 years, it'll just be pretty much top 40 played over and over. So like everything else.
Hope not.
Although there's
Me too.
Yeah, and there's also, on the topic of hi-fi audio services, there's a new one that recently came out called Qobuz, spelled Qobuz. It's supposed to be something that's a lot bigger than Tidal, and in very high quality. I mean, I heard Patrick Norton was reviewing it pretty recently, like a few months ago when it came out. So I haven't experimented with it, but I'm not sure if anybody here's heard of it.
I have not.
Nope. Can't say as I have. Dave Jones, I see you've got your hand up.
I just wanted to reiterate pretty much what Eric and Thomas has said, that the real difference between Pandora and Spotify, at least back in the past, was that Pandora was really meant for you to discover music, where Spotify, you just pick your favorite songs and you play them over and over. And I actually, discovering new songs, I make it easy. I just stay in the 70s and 80s and I already know the music. So I just stay there and don't have to worry about looking for anything new.
Totally the all-out playlists, man. That's
Well,
how you do it.
I'm boring like that. I mean, I'm going to say boring just because I'm calling myself boring, but I do the same thing. I like, classic rock, 80s, new wave sort of stuff, and then some 90s, and there are lots of new bands that kind of have that flavor to them. And there's also bands that I like that are putting out new music. My wife and I, the other day, were like, I didn't know they had a new album out. I mean, it's like, how, again, it's just so much to stay on top of. So anyway.
Oh yeah, definitely. Monica, you've got your hand up. Go right ahead.
Okay. Actually, my husband kind of unintentionally took what I was going to say about Pandora with the Music Genome Project, because I remember that, like, after I fed it an artist and liked some songs, it was like, you like, music with complicated rhythm and instrumentation with hand claps. And I'm like, yes, you've got me. But then somehow it would always end up going to Backstreet Boys by the end of that. And I'm just like, no, you've gone astray. But I think that the curation and also just the strength of the playlist, because we had Amazon Unlimited for music, but their playlists were awful. They were horrible, and there were hardly any, and especially coming from other services. And there was one that got acquired by Google Play Music called Songza, and I don't know if anyone used them, but their playlists were amazing. And so I think that there were two things that made me switch from Amazon Music to Spotify. It was, the fact that their playlists were awful, and also that there was, for Spotify, there was a snap. And so it just made running it for me so much easier, because Amazon stuff tends to have occasionally for me would have DRM issues, and yeah, I'm like, no, I'm not going to switch over. This was back when I had a Windows partition. I'm like, I'm not going to switch over to this just so I can hear music. So the only thing I wish Spotify could do is if you could like separate the algorithms out, because I'll listen to like, you know, sounds of the loon or like beach waves when I'm going to bed, and that will just throw everything off. So it's like, oh, here, you want to listen to this? I'm like, I really don't care. I just have this one track. I listen to it when I go to bed. I don't want you to put this in the algorithm. So if any Spotify devs are listening.
I have the same problem with YouTube. It's not music, but like I'll watch one video and then it just messes everything up as far as the algorithm. I hate that.
Yep. Shickle.
So something really interesting, because I used to use YouTube. I wouldn't even use YouTube Music because I would just use YouTube for music. And this was when I was transitioning from Google Play Music, which I loved for song discovery, into YouTube Music was coming in, and it feels like Google Play was almost being abandoned in some ways. Like, I don't know, the app got a little crusty at times, and I was like, okay, I'll try something else. And what I noticed is that YouTube tends to adjust its recommendations not only based on what you watch, but when you watch it and where you do it. So I've noticed that depending on where I was and what time of the day it was, my suggestions and the type of music that it would offer me would follow a specific pattern based on that, which is fascinating and really cool, but also a little annoying if I'm in a certain mood and it's like, you want to watch memes, not music. And I'm like, well, I mean, kind of not right now.
Yes. All right. Anybody else want to get in on the music player before we move on?
Jack is awesome.
Sure. Okay. So the next one on the list is Google Chrome. That is one of the 21 best apps to use on Linux or Ubuntu. So obviously this is a touchy subject for Linux users, and it's very opinionated sometimes. I think we all have our opinions on which browser we choose, but what do you guys have as far as your browser choice?
I'm a Vivaldi fan. I'm just going to say it right now. I am a fan of Vivaldi. I love its scaling of the user interface. That way I can have more content in the center. And I also like the fact that I can tile tabs in the same window together. That way I don't waste space.
All right, so, DJ. Sorry, Eric.
No. Go, DJ.
I've been playing around with the new features in Firefox where you can set up different scenarios or different levels of it. So you can have a work area, private area. I've been playing around with that, but I use Tor a lot also. But then I'm a tinfoil hat guy. So what are you going to do?
I think there's different levels of tinfoil hat, DJ. I don't think you're like that far out there. You can like privacy and like people not, looking at your stuff without being a tinfoil hat.
Nate, I think you were up. Did you have a browser of choice?
You can just skip him, dude.
Okay, sorry.
I think Nate's there. Yeah.
All right. I'm gonna save mine. Hopefully people will touch on it, so I don't have to get too long-winded. I'll just say it's Firefox, and I'll give very good reasons for it.
Wow. All right, John.
So I'm going to come out strong for Team Firefox here. Tinfoil does make me rashy, but I am very much liking the DNS over HTTPS that they rolled out recently. They're killing tracking cookies as I'm going on. Things like Facebook Jail. It's just a good browser for me.
All right, Tony.
I'm afraid I'm a Google Chrome user.
Don't be afraid. See, this is the thing. I don't think anyone needs to feel afraid of using Google Chrome. If you want to use Chromium instead, it's what works for you So I'm just setting the ground floor there. Do not feel like you can't say that you use Chrome.
I mean, if you don't care about privacy, Tony, you're fine. I mean, no, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. There's no bar here, okay? You use whatever you want to use.
If you use the internet, there's no such thing as privacy. So does
Not
it really
wrong.
matter?
Yeah.
But the reason I use Google Chrome is because I use the translator that's built into it when I go to certain Spanish sites so that I can understand. I haven't found another browser with a decent built-in translator. Otherwise, I'd be willing to swap or try something else. There was an add-on for Firefox that used to do it, but that doesn't work anymore. And I don't know of another browser that's got a built-in translator unless somebody else does and can steer me in that direction.
No, you're right, Tony. I've looked too, and Firefox does have an add-on for translate, but you have to put paste the text in. It's really clunky, whereas Google,
hey, do you want to translate the page?
yeah.
I mean, unless
it just works.
Unless Safari decides to become a snap package and come to Ubuntu.
So, but here's one thing I'll say for that. I think a lot of people probably have multiple browsers installed, and I know I do. For me, it's for web development mainly, but that's a good use case for where if most of the time you wanted to use Firefox or some other browser, and then just knew that, well, if I have to go to this, government site or something, then I'm going to have to use Chrome because that's the easy way to do it. So there doesn't have to be one answer either. So.
Oh, by the way, I forgot there's a feature in Vivaldi that there's a built-in ad blocker as well in Tracker Killer as well.
Yeah, Vivaldi's interesting. They do a lot of crazy stuff. I mean, if you want to do, have notepads.
It's the true successor to Opera. The Opera browser that's currently out there is a shell of its former glory ever since it sold off to a Chinese firm. I'm just being blunt here. The actual OG Opera team are the people behind Vivaldi now. So
yeah. All right, well, let's see what other people use. Eris, what's your vote?
I use Firefox. I've been using Firefox, I think, on the first version they ever released, like 0.6 or something. I a couple of months ago, I made my user.js file, several user.js files, and my Chrome folder. And whenever I just distro hop or anything, just put that in there, have all my settings, and I can have multiple instances of Firefox open for what I'm doing. I just have so much freedom and so many settings that I can customize it. It just doesn't compare. I've used Brave, but I still think Brave is too heavy in some points.
Got it. All right, Jason.
Well, for the longest time, I was a diehard Chrome user. Then I started having some issues with Chrome and Windows systems. Yes, I still use Windows, and even my Mac systems. It was with Windows, with the Windows Update 2004, it was crashing the whole system. And whenever I had a Chrome window open, eventually halfway, down the road, I don't know, maybe 30, 40 minutes after opening the Chrome window, it would just freeze up the entire system. So I removed it, installed the Firefox. Firefox, I don't have that issue. So I don't know what's something to do with the 2004 and Chromium or what it is. Maybe it was because of the new Edge Chromium. They didn't like each other. I don't know what it was. But I switched to Firefox about a week ago, and I've been using it since, and it's been great. I did have to turn off tracking though. They did have in the settings somewhere they did have send data to Firefox turned on, so I had to turn that off, so I didn't have to send them data.
Gotcha.
So Jason, what you're saying is that you used to be a diehard Chrome fan, and then Chrome started dying hard on you.
Basically, yes. It's
That
like,
sounds accurate. Yeah.
It sounds like any basic yeah.
There's the dad joke. Anyway, thanks. And I find myself I tend to use many different browsers. I've used many different over the years, but I really use Firefox probably more than any of the other ones. So that's just me. I think the extensions and add-ons kind of work pretty good for the most part. So it works for me. Dave Jones, I see you got your hand up. Go right ahead.
My heart's with Firefox, but I really find myself using Chrome more than anything else. Especially with my job, we use the G Suite for nonprofit organizations, and it's just having to have to use the Google apps. It's just the way it integrates. I just, although I'd rather not use it, I just find that the way, that it just runs much smoother through Chrome than Firefox.
Yeah, it makes sense. Colin, go right ahead. You got your hand up.
Yeah, I use Google Chrome mostly. It's easier. It's locked into the YouTube system and Android phone, and I just find that ecosystem's easier to use. Firefox I use for logging into my bank and other things like that. So Firefox is kept nice and clean to do those types of things. But I've thought about moving over. I've got a Firefox sync account and all that. I just haven't updated all my bookmarks and stuff, which I want to do. But I just find Google just easier to. Now, the only annoying thing is, Google will say, "What did you think of this place?" And it's like, I just got here.
Well, Colin, you can transfer your bookmarks and stuff straight from Google right into Firefox. It's an option, so you don't have to redo everything or anything. Like just click done.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I don't know. I just find it easy to use Google Chrome for some reason, but I think it's just over the years it's just become that, and I just stayed with it. So, but I don't have. I find Firefox okay to use anyway. It's just the way I am currently. So, yeah.
To all the Chrome users, are there any power moves or power features that you use on Chrome? That you
no,
there's a
I
reason
open
why
it. I open it. I do the things I want to do, and then I close it.
That's the power user features.
I can type an address in the address bar.
Well, apparently, the most power usage so far has been when people go into Spanish sites. There, I think it was Tony said when he goes to Spanish sites, he uses the translation. I mean, that's probably the best example of what Google can be used for, is being good. Plus, like Google Suites and things of that nature, it integrates with a lot more things. I've noticed.
Power user move in Chrome is, as someone said in the YouTube chat, when you go to Chrome://flags. That's a power user move, especially if you know actually what to turn on and off.
And those are available in Vivaldi as well.
They are. They're available in anything Chrome based. So.
All right, Monica.
So I'm with my husband on this, so we can keep the marital bliss in our house. Also, Team Firefox, but I've started doing a weekly Netflix viewing with a friend across the country, and the app that we use, which I think is Screener or Screen It, only works in Chrome. And I tried using it in Chromium and it didn't work. And I wasn't going to be like, well, I can't use this in other things, so we won't do this. I'm like, well, I'll fire up Chrome. And for that hour that we watch Netflix, I'll use Chrome. And it doesn't feel like I have to go, purify myself afterwards. It's like, it's what I use and that's fine. But Firefox, I think for the same reasons that my husband said, especially kind of Firefox, Facebook jail. It's just really nice. So, and it's just it kills me because at our school we still have Internet Explorer on our computers, and I'm just like, oh,
yeah.
It's like, guys, use Firefox.
Well, actually, for IE, my enterprise is actually replacing IE with the new Chromium Edge, and going to have the new IE backwards compatibility mode built into Edge on that instance. So,
Shickle, go ahead.
So I'm a strange chicken, and I was a heavy Chrome user. I actually really like Chrome, and it has nothing to do with me being a Google apologist. That's just a coincidence. As for power user usage things, Chrome://flags. You can toy with all kinds of hardware acceleration features. You can toy with the way it renders things, all kinds of fun, wacky stuff. It's a great way to break things. Go for it. But my default browser is actually Epiphany or GNOME Web. And many of you guys will probably know that as the one that crashes or the one I immediately uninstall when using elementary OS. But it's been very nice for me recently. It's unfortunately got some issues that causes it to be unstable in some situations, but so far I haven't had a crash in a long, long time. So that is my daily browser, and it has Firefox Sync built in. So all my history and browsing stuff is synchronized with my phone super easily. And it actually uses WebKit, which is what Safari uses. And Firefox on iOS also uses WebKit. So basically, I'm using Safari. So, yeah.
All right. Computer Kid?
Yeah, I'm Team Firefox, kind of predictably, but whatever that word is. But DJ, where you mentioned that you use Firefox and Tor, the Tor browser is actually Firefox with the Tor routing slapped on top. So you're just using Firefox everywhere.
I'm well aware of that, but the problem is that a lot of websites block Tor.
Mm-hmm.
They do.
Yeah.
They do. Yep. Especially if you're using something like Cloudflare, something like that. Yeah, they will block. So, John?
Thanks. I just wanted to share an observation I had as we're talking about this. It's very interesting that it's so few people decide one way or the other based on the fact that Google is the evil empire, and more on their workflows. Like they have something that works best with Chrome, or they have something that works best with Firefox, so on and so forth.
Well, we've talked about so many things being web-based tonight and in general, right? I mean, and if you look at Linux, historically, one of the challenges has been compatible software. And I would argue that things being web-based is one of the reasons that Linux is so much easier to use today than it was in the past. And so browser compatibility is a big part of that. And I find it, so I'm a Firefox user, as I mentioned, and I'll give the reasons why now. But one of the things that really disappoints me in a lot of cases are certain companies have just decided that Chrome is going to be their base, and that if you are using something other than Chrome, oh, well, too bad. And we have web standards in place for a reason. There's no reason that those websites couldn't work on any browser, but they just choose for whatever reason. I know it's easier to QA and develop and everything if you have one browser in mind, but that's a little disappointing. But the browser is so important. Colin says you open it up and you type in and you close it. I don't close my browser ever. If there's any program at all running on my system, it's going to be my web browser, and simply because so much of what I do, and again, I know it's because I'm doing web-centric work, but so much of what I do and interact with is all based around a web browser. So Firefox to me, Eris mentioned that he was a user from way back, and I was too. But for a while there, just before Chrome came out, it had gotten pretty bad. It was very slow. It was very buggy. I had a lot of problems with it. And so I switched to Chrome and was a Chrome user for many years. And then when Quantum came out for Firefox, I did end up coming back because the performance was so much better. The performance is still not as good as Chrome in my experience. But the utility of what I can do in Firefox is so much greater that I'm willing to trade that small amount of performance for a better experience. And we talked about levels of, security awareness and things like that. My perfect setup for Firefox is you've got the containers, right? Which the Firefox or the Facebook container is one of them. But containers in general, if you just have the containers add-on, then you can cordon off your experience on the web. So I've got containers for banking, for shopping, for personal things, for, I've got about 10 different containers. And it does take some work. You have to be kind of diligent about saying, I always want this website to open in this container. And there's a little, way to toggle it. So it's not as just effortless way to use it. You do have to put some effort in. But if you use containers, and you use something like cookie auto delete, which will automatically delete all cookies from websites when you close a tab, unless you tell it to save them. And then I also use something called Simple Tab Groups, which lets me then put tabs into different containers. And it's very complicated. And I think most people would look at it and say, that's insane. I would never put that amount of effort into setting up my browser that way. But because so much of what I do is, again, based on a web browser, because I've put that effort into it, it's like having folders in your email, right? You're either one of those people that has an inbox full of 10,000 emails and you just don't care, and that's just how you roll. Or you're one of those people that says, I'm going to organize everything, and then when I get an email from that person or that company, I'm going to put it where it belongs so that I know where to go get it when I need it. And that's exactly what I do with containers and tab groups and things like that. And once you adopt that workflow, there is no analog in Chrome or any other browser. And so at this point, the way that I've set all this up is such that I really, even if I wanted to, I couldn't really use another browser in the same way because of all of the utility I get out of the way I've set up Firefox. And I feel it's reasonably secure because things are contained and cordoned off. And just being able, for example, not to get too long-winded, but for simple tab groups, when I'm developing different websites and all the things I do. So for Biddle, I've got a couple different websites. So I have a group called Biddle. When I switch to that tab group, I've got all of the Biddle websites just there and ready for me. And then for all of my customers, I've got groups for them. And then, so it's just easy for me to contain that, because honestly, I've seen people that'll have 20, 30 tabs open, and I just, maybe I'm too OCD, but I just cannot handle having more than, like, let's say 10 tabs open. And those groups allow me then to have 50 different tabs open, but I can have them separated out. So anyway, there's so much you can do with Firefox with the extensions that are out there. Most of them are open source, they're all open source, but most of them are hosted somewhere like GitHub that you could actually go and talk to the developer. It's just a different experience once you go down that path.
Well, I never used simple groups, but I did use tab containers or container tabs, and they are awesome. There's nothing like container tabs out there. So, yeah. Anybody else want to get in on the browser?
Sure.
I just curl the source and read the source of the web page.
Is that what you do?
I mean, is that not what everyone should be doing?
Wow.
You use Vim to read it, right?
No, less.
Oh, less? Okay.
Vim's too, that's bloat.
Yeah,
Dan,
Vim
that's
is bloat.
Oh, yeah.
He uses Vim when he thinks he needs to edit it, and then he uses SendMail to email it to the person who made the website when he wants to make
I use
suggestions.
Postfix, thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, there's a difference?
Yeah.
No, but seriously though, I use Chrome like on everything because I like having my stuff sync really nicely between devices. That's pretty big for me. I know Firefox can do the same thing, but it's whatever. And Chrome works with Stadia. That's a big one for me because I do play a lot of that. I know there are Chromium-based browsers that'll do it. I'm not really concerned with those. That Chrome is Chrome, and that's good for me.
Well, and one other thing I mentioned it earlier. So I definitely still I use Chromium instead of Chrome, but I still have it installed because there are things like Stadia and other stuff. Plus, if you're building websites, you need to know that it looks right on multiple browsers. But
Yeah.
again, that's where you can have another browser to do that. And
But yeah, that's what I use.
good to hear your voice, by the way, Adam.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Nate.
I use Firefox when I have to. I got it installed, but I very rarely use it. Well, I don't have to use it so much anymore now. But Chrome, I do have that just in case. But my primary browser, I would say, is Falcon. It's stripped down. It doesn't do a lot of things, which is why I like it, because websites can't inject things, it seems like, in Falcon because it just breaks. So I like that. Well, Falcon doesn't break. The website breaks.
Oh,
And
okay. I thought you meant just the website tries to do something, and Falcon just breaks. So
Breaks
that
my
works
browser.
for me.
It's great.
The website just
Nate-
can't do things.
Nate, if you don't get a job with KDE, I swear something is wrong in this universe.
Yeah, but I try to spend as much time as I can in W3M. That's what it is. So it's a text-based browser, and it
Yeah.
works really well. And yeah, I mean, sometimes the pictures are a little bit wonky in it, but outside of that, you can read your text, and it's very lightweight. It doesn't do much of anything, which is why I really like it. Because if I can't read it in W3M, it's a terrible site.
Yeah, obviously.
Right.
Joshua, go ahead.
So, I've actually more been fond of just Chrome. I just happen normally, otherwise I would just typically use Firefox. But most of the time, assuming that's available, I'll definitely be using the Brave web browser by DuckDuckGo because it has great integration with Ecosia, another tree growing profit search engine, and it's made by developers of DuckDuckGo, and it's very good at respecting your privacy. So I think it's pretty cool.
That is
That's
a good
what I
browser.
recommend.
Yep.
And I'm sorry, but Colin mentioned Chrome working really well on Android, and obviously it would. The new Firefox beta, if you haven't used it on Android, is really, really good. So worth checking out.
Computer Kid?
So, a couple of things. First of all, Tony doesn't need to be scared using Chrome, but I should be scared because I actually am using Conquer right now. Because I've got so many tabs in Firefox, and my computer is a little bit of a potato, and so if I open Firefox right now, everything will crash. And so I use KDE, so I already have Conquer installed, and I have a couple of links I wanted to open, so I just use Conquer.
Falcon.
But
I'm telling you.
But also somebody mentioned like power tricks or whatever. I don't know what to call it, but
Yeah.
I do in Firefox. I control tab, which is basically alt tab, but for
Boy,
your
is that
Firefox
nice.
tabs. It is nice.
That's a standout feature, I think. Going through all your tabs with control tab, it's beautiful.
Yep.
I
That's
would
why
like
have,
to say
multiple monitors. I can have multiple tabs, multiple windows.
It is the
it
killer
is
feature.
really nice that Firefox has that control tab thing. It's a little annoying that it doesn't work with control shift tab backwards like it does in Chrome. You can only go in one direction with it. So if you have a lot of things open, it's like spinning a wheel.
So I just tested
Control-
that, and it does.
What?
It's
Control-
there, man. It's there.
Very
I use
nice.
control page up and down. That also goes because it's right next to my arrow keys. So I just do that to jump tabs.
It's not doing it.
Convert. Come back to us.
Master Billy says you need the tab unloader extension, Computer Kid.
Chrome also has the control shift or control tab and control shift tab.
That's what I use in Chrome.
What's the tab on loader extension?
I think what it does is it takes away the resources from a tab when you're not actually looking at it, so that it overall will use less memory.
All right.
I probably should get that. Sounds like a good idea.
I think we need to move on from this topic only because it's almost at the end, and yeah, we've covered it for a little bit. I'm actually gonna probably save the rest of this list for other biddles. It seems to be a fun topic to do. Is there anything else somebody wants to bring up before we close the show out?
No, but I actually suggest that since we were all really getting into this conversation, I'm sure that we can all definitely manage and with different web browsers and how we can freely express our ideas on them. As much as weird as it sounds, I think that this is something great that we should continue discussing on the Big Daddy Linux discourse.
More than welcome to, Joshua. But I think it's awesome that no matter what browser you use, that you're not looked at like you're an idiot because you use this browser or that browser. That's so important in a community to have the ability to be open about something where you don't want to you don't want to have to shy away and say, oh, kind of use this. You don't want to have to do that. And I think it's awesome that we can all talk about it and not give anybody a hard time about it. That's going to do it, I guess. We got to do the last words, and Dan, last word.
Oh, thanks, Rocco. I know this has been a long day for you, and I appreciate you being here and hosting both shows. Can't say enough about that. Check out Linux User Space this Monday, first episode. And for more info, linuxuserspace.show.
Yep. So one upfront thing about Linux User Space, the first episode is pretty long. Sorry about that. It was longer than we intended it to be, but it ended up being kind of like a mini spotlight about each host to kind of get to know who we are. So that's kind of why it's going to be a little bit of a long episode, but future episodes won't be as long. Thomas.
Hi.
Hi, Thomas. Last word.
Well, two things. First off, tomorrow I'm going to be doing a stream over on the Drugger OS YouTube channel, and I'm going to be repairing a laptop that I'm going to be using for hardware testing, both here on BDLL and for Drugger OS. So if you want to come check that out, chill. I'll have the link posted in both the BDLL Telegram and Discord, if I remember to put it in the Discord.
Why don't you put the link in the YouTube chat so people can grab it?
Haven't got the YouTube link yet.
You're not even to your channel? Just to get to your channel.
To my channel, I can dig that up here in a minute.
Yeah.
My second thing is one of my best friends, Patrick, is watching right now. So, Patrick, stop what you're doing and switch to this tab real quick. Hi. You see all these guys right here? They're cool. And I know you've been thinking about switching to Linux. You talked about it before. Switch to it soon, because when you do, I'm going to drag you on here so you can give everybody your opinion of Linux as a first-time user. Okay, bye-bye.
Okay. Nope.
Very nice. Aris, last word.
Thank you very much for the double stream today, and see you next week.
Big Pot. I think he unplugged his headphones again. Jason, last word.
Either that or he's asleep.
Probably that.
But I do want to say thank you to everybody, Rocco and Dan, and everybody else that helps out, Eric, and everybody else that helps out with the BDLL all the time, and all the other different podcasts and things. It's great to have this community, and it's great to be able to be here and have these discussions. Whether it's like on the European version that we did earlier today, we talked about how you do the upgrades. Do you upgrade, or do you upgrade from inside Linux, or do you erase and start over? That was a discussion that we had earlier. We're talking about browsers. It's very, very diverse topics, and I definitely like the fact that we can talk about anything with either Linux and technology mix. Is great.
Yep. Dave Jones, last word.
Rocco, Dan, everybody else, thanks for putting on the show. It's a great way to cap off the week. It's I look forward to it every Saturday, and can't wait until next week. See y'all.
Tony, last word.
Yes, it's installed.
What's installed, Tony? We didn't even mention it. How could you know what was installed, Tony?
Regolith.
Oh, okay. All right. Yes. I did forget to mention that Regolith is going to be our probably our last distro talk for a little bit. We'll probably take a break after that and just have normal conversation. But that's what we're going to try this week. Yeah, go ahead. Anyway, last words, Tony.
This was a great show. I was able to join in the conversation a bit more, which helps keep me awake and makes it more interesting. And it would be good if you carry this format on in other BDLLs in the future. Other than that, take care, everyone, till next week. And I hope to join you all same time, same place.
Chicken.
I didn't really prepare a last word, but I just wanted to say on the Control-Shift-Tab thing, there is a difference between Control-Tab and then using Shift and hitting Control-Shift-Tab. So they're two separate things. In Chrome, you can hit Control-Shift-Tab, and it just goes backwards without opening it up and then going backwards in it.
All right, Jinda.
Thanks for having me, everybody. This was a blast. Take it easy.
Monica?
Anyway, it was great to join all of you again, and thank you all for being so nice to my husband. We kind of are a package deal, and I'm really happy that he could make it. So hopefully we'll see you all a lot more.
Yep. Glad he joined. Paul, last word.
Netscape Navigator.
Yep. Perfect. Colin, last word.
Graphic.
Colin?
Was that my internet's a bit unstable today? I'm missing a couple of conversations here and there. Thanks, Rock and Co, for the platform. Regolith again. Looks like I'm going to have to warm my fingers up to do a little bit of what do you call it? Keyboard shortcuts, is it? That's that. What do you call it? What type of desktop? It's a window managing thing, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a tiling window manager. It's i3.
i3. Yuck.
Yeah.
Might have lost Colin there.
Yeah, I think we lost Colin. Nate, last word, brother.
Word. Thanks. Love it. See you next week.
DJ.
Well, thanks as always, and good to see you all again. I just wanted to give a shout out to Slackware. Happy birthday on Friday, and it was of course based on Soft Landings, which had a tagline I think went something like "Soft Landings for DOS bailouts." So Linux is a soft landing for Windows bailouts. Good night, y'all.
John, last word.
Thanks to everybody for having me. Thank you so much for helping support my wife and learning to love Linux like I did. And on to what Rocco said, wear your choices proudly. Linux is all about choices. Stay stock. Go to other distro. You use whatever browser. Just whatever you do, choose to have fun. Thanks all.
Awesome. Eric, last word.
Hey, so glad I was able to come back this week and see everybody. Hopefully I can do this more often. I laughed when Paul said Navigator, but funny enough, earlier today I was browsing around and SeaMonkey is still a thing. So if you want that experience of everything built in, go check out SeaMonkey.
Oh my gosh.
Anyway, thanks Rocco and everybody for being here. It's always good to see your smiling faces, and hopefully I'll see you next week.
Good to have you back, brother. JJ, last word.
Is it too late to mention Midori? By the way, I really do appreciate good thing to hear that Rocco is back up and running, back to normal, and that his surgery went excellent. So good to hear that. And also thanks to all the crew that makes this show possible. It's one of the outlets that I get to participate in, and really appreciate it.
Adam.
Hey, thanks for the show. Glad you're feeling all right, Rocco. And nice to see some folks who I haven't seen in a while. And please, people, wear a mask. It's not hard. It's not that bad. Just please do it. Thank you.
Computer Kid.
Thank you guys. I really enjoyed it, and I'm excited if we're doing Regolith next time. Probably gonna feel right at home.
All right, that's going to wrap it up for us. As Dan said, Linux user space on. Where did you go, Joshua? Did you join back in, or did I miss you completely?
No.
Oh, well, then there you go, Joshua. Last word.
Okay, I'm sorry. I was being snippy. I'm very sorry. No problem. So yeah, thank you again, Rocco ×2. Anyways, I'm glad to be here. I'll probably actually be here next week because I really enjoy Regolith. And by the way, Computer Kill will definitely have a lot to say because after our talk about why there's so many Ubuntu remixes, he's like, I think maybe I should try to make an Arch KDE with i3 window manager spin. I'll leave that for another day. All right, bye.
All right, that will wrap it up for us. Dan mentioned Linux user space. Definitely check that out on Monday. Linux Spotlight this past week was Eric, which was another fantastic conversation. Eric is such a cool dude. And it was nice to get to hang out with him for a little bit. I don't have any Linux Spotlight lined up yet for 2 weeks from now because of, issues that have been going on. So I'm a little behind, but hopefully we'll get that out on time as well. We will continue looking at this list, and because it makes for some good conversation and to get to know everybody and how they think about what programs they use on their computers. So I really enjoyed this conversation as well. We will see you next week. But until then, long live Linux.
Later, guys.
Goodbye.
Patrick, switch to Linux.
Yes, switch to Linux.
Nice
Do it,
one,
Patrick,
Paul.
do it.
Wow.
Go